my keys. You giving up, please. Sip my drink. Boy, I got your bitch all on her knees. They know I'm a big bounce, got a big bounce in this bitch. They know I'm a big talker, have my big body and they shit. Know it's happening, bitch. R.I.P. Bitch, they die. Turn the light on my side. Bitch, how the lights off for you inside.
So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these things here. We got positives and negatives, of course. We got the positives, right? The positives obviously are the Denver Broncos defense. Seems like it's getting stronger and stronger. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago when I did my video on the Eagles versus Broncos game, I thought that score was going to be 24-22, I believe. It was pretty damn close to that. So anyway, a couple things worked out differently. Saquon did not go off, but he did have a decent average per carry, right? So he did have a good average per carry. I don't know what's going on with the Eagles. Not an Eagle fan, but I'm just saying, just from the perspective of a fan in general. It looks like they're not using Saquon correctly. I know they have some issues on the offensive line as well, and they're trying to force the ball to the receivers. Receivers are very unhappy with Jalen Hurts, but you are what you are, man. You got to play within your strengths, and Jalen Hurts is not a guy you want to lead your team passing the ball. You want him to throw in, mix in some passes, and you want him to run the ball essentially, and he has some pretty strong wide receivers there, and they're not doing that. So I don't know if that's probably because of the new offensive coordinator, but we'll see what happens. That's 2 losses in a row for the Eagles. The last loss, of course, came in from the Giants, so we will be facing the Skattebo, Jaxon Dart, exciting Giants. So as a fan, you got to appreciate those guys. They're pretty exciting, pretty fun to watch. Young guys, a lot of energy, very positive, cool guys, right? But let's go ahead and let's give them another couple weeks here, at least one more week off until they go the next level. So right now they're looking pretty solid. Jaxon Dart, I'm hoping throws a couple picks this game, right? Young guy. We stopped rushing quarterbacks this year. So Jaxon Dart, he's a running quarterback. That's where a lot of his strength is coming from. He's mixing in some passes. They don't really have a lot of guys with Malik Neighbors down. Wandell, I don't think Wandell's going to do anything, right? So we're in pretty good shape there. I think the Broncos should win this, but at the same time, I had a video, just full disclosure, I was going to put out about the Broncos versus the Jets, and I thought the Jets were going to lose pretty badly, so I thought it was going to be something like 31-13. That did not work out. But anyway, just being honest there, I didn't put it out. But I was pretty disappointed in that London game. A lot of people talk about London hangovers, jet lag, and all that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that's what we have going on there. Because we got a couple strengths. Let's talk about the strengths of the Broncos defense here. So we got back-to-back NFL Defensive Players of the Week. Nick Bonnito in week number 5, followed up by Jonathan Cooper in week number 6. So we got a 2nd rounder, Nick Bonnito, a 7th rounder. What a steal we had with Jonathan Cooper. That's amazing. I believe he came out of Ohio State. So anyway, let's take a look at a couple of things. That's the first time in Denver Broncos history we've had back-to-back NFL Defensive Players of the Week. The NFL Defensive Player of the Week award. Right now, we are leading the NFL with 30 sacks. And let's go ahead and take a look at the actual league leaders here. So right now, Denver Broncos, 30 sacks, leading the NFL. Number 2, 10 sacks behind you guys is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then you got also Seattle tied with 20 there, 20 for those guys. And then you got, Detroit and Los Angeles Rams following up with 19. So we got a pretty big lead here as far as this goes. Just kind of give you an idea of what happened here. So the franchise record for the Broncos is 63 sacks. Set last season by the same unit, by the way, and the NFL record is 72. So we're right on track to possibly break this record. Nick Bonnito is on track also because we are a contender, sneaking by the Jets there, and now we're at 4-2. That would have been a travesty, or it would have been terrible if we would have gone 3-3. If we would have lost that game, that would have been atrocious. But anyway, we snuck by. Very ugly game. I don't know. Some of the ugly things to look at are our Bo Nix right now. You just don't know which player you're going to get. Are we going to get the Bo Nix? Are we going to get the Bo Nix that we love? Are we going to get the Bo Nix that gets up there and he comes back in the 4th quarter and shows that he is possibly going to be an elite quarterback? Or are we going to get the Bo Nix that has been showing up most of the season? So right now, just kind of give you a game log here on Bo Nix, right? we have thrown the most yards Bo Nix has thrown, obviously, is 326 yards this season, and that was against the Cincinnati Bengals, which were very depleted. We started off, just going to give you a rundown. Tennessee, 176 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions, rough start. Followed up by Indianapolis. He had 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I don't think that should have been an interception. If you remember that game, I think that was a scoop off just above the turf there, and he had to kind of change his arm angle due to the fact that he seems to get a lot of passes batted down. So that's an issue with his game that hopefully we can get past, because it reminds me a little bit of Russell Wilson, which we don't want any thoughts of in the future here. So we give away too much for that guy, of course. And against the Chargers, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, right? But we honestly were in that game the whole time, and full credit to Justin Herbert threading the needle in the end zone to win that game. So that was a tough game. Should have lost that one, but I believe we should have won the one against Indianapolis, because if little revisionist history here, we had the leverage call where basically on field goal, 60-yarder, which was missed. We had a penalty call for 15 yards, which made it a 45-yarder instead of a 60-yarder, and you get to redo it. So that was how we lost that game by a point. So anyway, Cincinnati, we took off there, which we should have 100%, because the defense in Cincinnati is not good. Jake Browning is not good. Hence him being replaced by Joe Flacco. So anyway, Joe Flacco is in there now. He already looks better. He's a statue behind the worst offensive line probably in the NFL, but he had a pretty decent game, even though they lost last week. They had signs of life. But anyway, so we won that game. We were supposed to win that in Philly. The surprise one, making Philadelphia 4-1. We came in there, and we had 242 yards from Bo. Touchdown, no interceptions, right? And the last game, of course, was a dud. No interceptions, 1 touchdown, 174 yards. The thing about Bo Nix right now, he's only averaging about 6.2 yards per attempt. In the last game, anyway, is what he was averaging, and he's averaging under 7 yards per attempt overall for this season, which is pretty bad. A couple things to look at, though. However, we do not have a solid number 2. Who's going to go in there? Mims or who are we going to have as a number 2? We need it. There's some talk of Chris Olave. The Saints, he's going to have to get paid. So that's the thing about it. Chris Olave is going to get paid, and I don't know if the Saints are willing to give up that paycheck. And it just depends if the Broncos are willing to pay Chris Olave. But he does look like he'd be a nice fit here in Denver as well. So we'll see what happens with that. Just a little bit of soft news. I don't know how much credibility there is to that story, but he's the only guy out there on the potential trading block that I would be interested in, because we do need that number 2. And we can flex some guys, Troy Franklin and Mims at the number 3 spot there if that's the case. Anyway, just to kind of give a rundown here, since we do have the Giants coming in and in our next game here, and we got a couple things to look at. The Giants defense has given up about 17 points a game, so pretty damn solid. Brian Burns, 7 sacks, and he's had a sack in 5 of the last 6 games, and he had 2 sacks versus the Eagles against of course our man Jalen Hurts, right? So Jalen Hurts slinging the ball for 280 yards in a losing effort. Let's see here. So we've got a sub 90 rating for Jalen Hurts in that game. However, we've got Nix this year, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 88.2 rating, 6.2 yards per attempt average in the last game. And he's had 3 sub 9 rating games in the last 4 games. So it's up and down for Bo Nix. He's running a little bit. His average per carry per run this year is it's a little bit down. So right now we're looking at his running, because right now they're talking about Bo Nix running here, which could be a factor in this game as well. So last year he averaged 4.7 yards per carry when he scrambles out of the pocket. This year it's 3.8, right? But he's getting about 20.7 yards per game. Last year, 25.3. So we got some things to take a look at here as far as that goes. Can he get around the corner on Brian Burns? Can we get some yards? Is Courtland Sutton going to have a bounce-back game? Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up this video, guys. So let's go ahead and give a prediction here. So my prediction is going to be 31-17 Denver Broncos. The reason I believe that's going to happen here, even though we both beat the Eagles, Giants, and the Broncos beat the Eagles, and actually you could even say that the Eagles were handled even more mightily by the Giants than they were the Broncos, is maybe there's a little bit of a hangover after that defeat. So a couple things here to kind of keep in mind. You've got Jaxon Dart. He's only had 3 starts, right? This will be his 4th start. He has not taken on a defense like the Denver Broncos, who lead the NFL with 30 sacks, led by Nick Bonnito, 8 sacks. And you've got Jonathan Cooper with 4.5 sacks. One thing about the Broncos right now, we are not intercepting the ball, so that's just going to come along. We're going to week 7, so I think we're actually going to intercept Jaxon Dart at least one time here. We're going to get a few sacks on Jaxon Dart. I would say we're going to get 4 sacks. 4 sacks. Yeah, I said 4 sacks against Jaxon Dart. We handle mobile quarterbacks pretty well. We're going to force him into at least 1 interception, hopefully more. So as far as that goes, Skattebo, he's going to get his yards. He's a tough dude. He's going to run over some guys. He's going to get some yards. Even though we handled the Jets, they had under 100 yards total against us, even with Justin Fields, who had a net negative 10 yards passing, just over 40 yards actually in reality, but after sacks, net negative 10. We're now facing a rookie quarterback, Jaxon Dart, coming off a high. However, he also did lose to the Saints. So he's 2 out of 3 games, right? So he beat the Chargers. We lost the Chargers, but we lost a very tight game. The Chargers, Justin Herbert completed a late touchdown, which won that game for them. And they are not. We should have beat the Colts, however. We lost that game, 60-yard field goal it should have been. However, with the penalty of the leverage call, they end up getting a 45-yarder, and they won that game. So anyway, it's over with. But as far as that goes, I think Jaxon Dart is going to have a little bit of a surprise. I think he'll be able to run the ball against us, but I think that 31-17 is going to happen. I think we're gonna wake up a little bit, get another interception. We only have 1 for the year. A couple things to consider. He doesn't have anyone to throw to. So Malik Neighbors is gone. Of course, he's out. Looks like he's gone, of course, for the season. Tore his knee up really badly, which is horrible. Hate to say it, but I think we're going to get our personality back again. So last game, we were unable to run the ball. I think we averaged just around 3 yards per carry, if not a little bit worse than that last game versus Jets. We came out of that, we won the game. So it was an ugly game, but we won it. So, but we still do have J.K. Dobbins. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry even after that horrible game. He's got 4 touchdowns, and he has 442 yards. R.J. Harvey, I'm not sure if we're going to mix him in a little bit more, what the story is with him, but I think we're just going with the proven guy right now. J.K. Dobbins just goes out there and does his job. They didn't do it last week, but they didn't do it that last week as a team. R.J. Harvey, 4.7 yards per carry and 154 yards. So we're going to have to go ahead and get our personality going, control the ball a little bit more, put the ball in our defense's hand. And I think by doing that, we are going to succeed in this game, and we're going to go up only 5-2 after this week. Giants are exciting. I like watching them. However, I think we're gonna play a little bit more ball control. Portland Sutton, 382 yards, 82 yards receiving, 14.1 average, 3 touchdowns. Don't have much of a number 2, as I've mentioned a few times already. Troy Franklin, 250 yards receiving, 10.4 yard average, and 1 touchdown. So a lot of these touchdowns have been spread out across the board here. It's nice to see. That Evan Ingram's starting to wake up a little bit. He's not getting, he's not having huge gains, but he's being more of a reliable receiver. Right now, he's got 137 yards on the year, only 8.1 average per catch, 1 touchdown. I'd like to see a little bit better than that. But I think we're going to go ahead and get our personality back in this game. Portland Sutton's going to wake up a little bit more. And we're going to be fine after the letdown in London, even though we did win that game. A couple things to consider. Of course, we have back-to-back NFL Players of the Year, or Players of the Week, I should say. But I think we will have a Defensive Player of the Year, possibly with Nick Bonnito. He's proving he's taking the next step here, and now he's on a contender. Being a contender, he's going to get that recognition if he ends up getting something crazy like 15-plus sacks. And it looks like he's on pace to do that, leading the NFL with 8 sacks. The Broncos, in fact, lead the NFL with 30 sacks. Second best team being Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're tied with someone else, but Pittsburgh Steelers with 20 sacks, and it falls off 19, and so on beyond that. But we have a chance to actually lead, get the record in the NFL sacks for overall ever. We're on very good track to have the all-time record for the Broncos. But yeah, 31-17 is my prediction in this game. Taking into account a couple things, the Broncos need to get more interceptions. The Giants, they're pretty close actually overall in what they give up in points per game. I think the Broncos are giving up just over 15 a game, and I think the Giants were just over 17. So pretty close in that way. However, we have a rookie quarterback coming in. It's going to come back down to earth a little bit. Even though I do like watching those Giants, I think they'll get some yards on the ground. Skattebo, that guy he's a battering ram, and he will definitely get some yards on the ground. But I think we do handle Jaxon Dart. No shade against those guys or anything, but I think you're coming into a hostile environment in Denver, and also the fact that you have lost a couple games, like you lost a game to the Saints here. So I think if the Saints can beat you your second start after beating the Chargers, I think the Broncos can also do that, and I think that's what we're going to see here. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Let's go ahead and wrap up this video. A little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but let's go get this thing on. Go on, Broncos country. Thanks.